So, hello everybody, welcome to the Update 53 item review. I am Guy on camera, and today we're going to be reviewing all of the items coming in Update 53, so all the heroic and raid items as well. So starting with the quest, there are two new quests that drop a whole bunch of items. We have, in heroics, the Green Stone Dagger. This is a dagger that has Mortal Strike, Deadly Seeker, Deception, and it is Crystal. Mortal Strike is a chance to instantly kill on an attack roll of 20. So, very cool. Extremely powerful weapon. Very, very, very good. On top of that, we also have the Greenstone Greatsword, which is the exact same thing, except a Greatsword. So again, very good Greatsword for level 7. Both fantastic, powerful effects. And then Hedge Trimmer. Hedge Trimmer here. It's got a sickle that's got piercing, bleeding, maiming, and plant bane. Very good against plants. If you're a sickle build, really good sickle, but you have to be a sickle build. So I have no idea, but maybe sickles will get better at some point, and this will become very powerful, but not today. Then we have some cloaks. Aral Owl Neve's Hide. So this is a cloak that adds subtle target. So it has, whenever you use diplomacy, you get 0 threat generation. This is very useful for anybody who happens to actually stack diplomacy, which is currently nobody, but if you did, kind of cool. Improved Deception at the low levels. The new scalable Improved Deception for a bonus to bluff checks. This is awesome. And then triple negative threat. So if you don't want to get aggro on monsters, this is the way to go. And then Hermia's Owl Feather Cloak, Illusion Focus, Jump, Feather Falling, Spell Save, Spell Resistance. Honestly, just generally a good item for low levels. Spell Saves is really useful to have. Illusion Focus is kind of hard to come by in the low levels unless you craft yourself something or wait till Ravenloft. And Spell Resistance is a convenient stat. You might not think it's good, but let's just say you're playing as like a drow plus this, you can have access to, I think, almost like 25 spell resistance at level 7, which is a lot. Basically makes you immune to a lot of magical effects, so very cool. And then we have Pyrefang Scholar. Pyrefang Scholar gives all the fire stats. It's a necklace, as well as Profane Spell Focus. Extremely good item. This is a good replacement for the necklace from Frosty Reception, which grants you Profane Spell Focus as well as some health and negative stats, like undead stats, if you don't want to use undead stats, or if you're a fire caster. So very, very good item. Additionally, this does not come from an expansion, so very cool. This is also a belt, because I don't know how to read. So it's not a replacement, it's just a different type of item. The epic version has a couple extra items. So it has all the same gear. So you got the Greenstone Dagger, Hedge Trimmer, and Greatsword. So are these items good? Independently, they are very good. Deadly Seeker and Deception, extremely powerful effects. If you have them in other places, these lose value, but these are fantastic first equip items. So if you have no other gear, these are amazing. This item alone gives you, what, an extra 23 damage per critical hit, as well as like 20 damage per regular hit. These are very, very good items if you don't have anything yet. With gear, you're usually going to have these built in. Your Deadly, your Seeker, and your Deception, so not quite as useful, depend on the gear set. Hedge Trimmer loses no value because all these effects are here. Are these good effects? Not really. It's just a bunch of extra damage on hit. Pretty good for like normal, hard, maybe elite. But moving on that, these definitely lose their luster pretty quickly. So pretty middle of the pack weapons, probably lower in the pack, depending on where you are in terms of your regular gearing. However, we now have the legendary trinkets here. So we have the Pyrefang Scholar, Profane Spell Focus on a belt, unseen before, as well as the combustion and stats. Very, very useful item. The Owl Feather Cloak, just granting jump, spell saves, spell resistance, and illusion focus. This has to compete with other items in the same slot, such as the Mage Right's Cloak, as well as the cloak from the Feywild Dreamer set. Not a bad item, but this is eerily close to the cloak from the Feywild Dreamer set, which that one, instead of giving jump and spell saves, gives enchantment focus. So, and it's part of a set. Probably a little bit better, hard to say for sure. And Owl Neve's Hide. This is a good threat reduction item. It's not something you're always going to use, but it's not bad for swapping in for a raid. One of the problems that a lot of people have is they pull aggro and then they kill people during raids. So this is a great swap for a situation where you're not dying, but you really don't want to flip a raid boss if somebody can't hold aggro over top of you. So keep that in mind. However, the epic version also comes with 2 additional artifacts. Grimm's Bone Bracer, which is a charisma bracer with quality spell focus, physical sheltering, and profane life force. Fantastic artifact. Very, very good. Competitive with the goggles, the bright gaze goggles. And also very useful for builds that don't need the Hallowed Castigators as charisma. I'm looking at you, sorcerers. This is an amazing sorcerer item because the sorcerer artifacts can sometimes clash with other good items from other sets. Amazing sorcerer item. And then the Cobalt Pocket Watch. This is a necklace that gives wisdom, quality spell focus, speed, and dodge. Dodge now being easily augmentable. This is not as nice, but still a wisdom necklace. No complaints here. Wisdom characters usually have free necklaces, unless you're a druid, but don't play druid. And then we have two augments as well. I don't know exactly where they come from, but if I had to guess, there is a new unicorn bit of content in the new adventure, as well as a tea party in one of the new adventures. So I'm assuming that probably comes from each of these. Crystallized Unicorn Tear is a chance for temporary hit points to proc on you. This is a very good effect, and it can proc all the time. I believe if you have more of these, the chances will add up together, although it only has one cooldown. So you might be able to get a whole bunch of these procs and have temporary hit points all the time. And the Drop of Tea reduces the cost of your Empower, and then also makes it so every 3 seconds when you take damage, you get spell power. Oddly useful. Both of these effects are oddly useful for the fun tank that I made. So if you haven't had a chance to play that one, these new augments fit right in and make your character way more powerful. So you may want to check that out. However, there's not just heroic gear. There's also raid gear. So we're going to take a look at the raid gear here and some of this new stuff. So first, there's 3 augments: the Emerald of Eldritch Empowerment, Arcane Empowerment, and Vile Empowerment. And these give you extra bonus damage dice for the different weapon imbue classes in the game. Arcane Archer, weapon imbue dice, so more damage when you use your Arcane Archer attacks. Eldritch Knight, weapon imbue, so more damage when your Eldritch Knight attacks people. And Vile Chemist damage dice. Very cool. Previously, these were not emeralds. Now they are, which means they fit into many different items in your gear set, as the most common augment slot or dual augment slot is green. They're all over the place, so very, very useful. Then we have the Phantom Steed. So this steed is the steed of the Wild Hunt. I guess I can just go outside and show you case what this actually looks like, because I can't see it in here, just to quickly show off what the steed looks like as a bit of a break. Steed. So this is the Steed of the Wild Hunt. This is going to come from the raid as a reminder. So you can't buy this in the store. You can't get this anywhere else. Unfortunately, you have to beat the raid to get this, and it has to drop. What's the drop rate? If it's anything like the Dryden the Demigod mount drop rate, everyone will have one in about a month. So we'll have to wait and see what the drop rate is on the steed. But definitely one of the more exciting steeds in the game, and I can't wait to get my hands on one of these bad boys. The Dryden the Demigod mounts drop fairly regularly, and since there's 2 chests, most people, if you start running that raid, you'll get all of them. This new raid also has 2 chests in it, so you can expect to get one of these horses pretty soon if you just start running the raid regularly. Now, beyond the mount right there, let's take a look at the rest of the raid loot. So first we have a bunch of weapons. Now, all of these weapons, I'm going to call these out: the Hunter Darkblade, the Gouger, the Hand Axe, Maury's Focus, the Inferno weapons, as well as Pomora's Impaler, and the Hunter's Axe, are hybrid weapons, which is they have spell stats and physical stats on them. So Grix's Gouger right here, it is a damage weapon. It's a heavy pick, but it has magnetism, quality, and insightful. All of those weapons have quality and insightful of the spell power, which means they work well with any character that wants to use spell power. But they usually have damage effects like Vorpal or Keen, and vulnerability. So this vulnerability is a special new type of vulnerability that increases damage taken from a specific damage type. So this Grix's Gouger increases electrical damage taken by monsters by 1% and stacks with regular vulnerability, say if you're an Azamar or a different type of class that applies vulnerability on hit, like a Divine Crusader. Very cool, because it means you can actually kind of configure these weapons to work with either stuff you do or with your friends. So you have a Lightning Sorcerer in your group, or you know you have a Lightning Sorcerer and a Lightning Alchemist in your raid group. It might be worth it for a melee to actually run this to increase the damage a monster takes from electric by 20%. So keep that in mind as we go down through the list. So first up, we have Spear of the Hunter. Spear of the Hunter actually looks like a regular spear. It's amazing. I probably should have had the visuals on here, but they'll be up soon, so you'll be able to take a look. But this item here, we're looking at the stats. It's got this Falling Star effect. It looks like it's about a 2% proc rate, so very similar to the Ruby Eye proc rate or the new Snow Peaks Ruby Eye of Snowstorm or Blizzard or whatever it's called, where basically there's a chance for this to happen where these meteors will come down, do some damage, it's about 500, and knock everybody over. it's very cool. However, it also has a small chance to hold monsters, and if they make their save, their will saves are reduced. Very, very cool effect. It seems to go off all the time, so you're going to be stunning people and freezing them up. Is this the best quarterstaff in the game? Staff of Shadow exists, and it's very difficult to get around that, so you're probably not going to beat Staff of Shadow or a very high-geared tune using a Elemental Bloom, but this is still a pretty cool effect because it has this unique Falling Star effect, so we'll see. Next, we have paired commas, Inferno's Demands and Desire. Inferno's Demands is the spellcaster version. Insightful Combustion Focus, Insightful Combustion, Fire Vulnerability, and Keen, versus Inferno's Desire, which is a Fire Lore Combustion, meaning between these you have all the fire stats in the game, as well as Mind Tear, which reduces monsters' magic resistance rating, which is known as the Ash effect, as well as Overwhelming Incineration. This weapon actually could be unique on an Eldritch Knight and something you may want to consider using. Plus, it also has the two-piece set, Artifact, Fire, Crit, Spell Power, and Damage versus the Helpless, giving them huge, huge extra damage out of here. So again, something you want to consider maybe using on an Eldritch Knight or something, especially if you're in melee. This Mind Tear effect allows you to reduce the magic resistance rating of a monster, and is probably going to be very good on a fire-based Eldritch Knight. Next, we have Maury's Focus, which is a acid light mace that adds the quality spell focus, or not spell focus, the insightful and quality corrosion, acid vulnerability, and it has dust, making monsters take more damage from physical attacks by reducing their physical resistance rating by a huge amount. Very cool weapon. I don't know if anyone's going to use it because it's a light mace, but we'll have to wait and see. Then we have Shadow Scythe, which is a shadow blade, just like the shadow blades from the previous raid, Dry and the Demigod, but this is a sickle. I think it may be a bug here that it uses strength and it doesn't do force damage. We'll have to wait and see. Because it's called a Shadow Blade, but it doesn't have the Shadow Blade stats. However, it does have Illusion Focus, Sovereign Nightmares, which is very good, and the Quality Insightful Impulse. Not a bad caster stick if you're somebody who is going to be focusing on Illusion and doing some extra damage. Say you're playing in Shadow Dancer, you're playing as a Fade Arc Illusionist, or you're just playing as an Artificer. You need the extra Quality and Impulse stats because you can't get them anywhere else in the entire game, and the Illusion Focus is just a bonus. Sovereign Nightmares effect also being very good, but again, outside of this, I'm not sure how much you would actually see. So this is, again, a wait and see here on whether this effect has changed over, especially because if this does not do force damage, it's kind of worse than the sickle you get outside the raid in terms of general damage. So we'll have to see there. But very useful item for lots of other different types of casters and that sort of thing. Next, we have the Hunter's Hand Axe, which has the Sonic version on here. However, it doesn't have Sonic vulnerability. It just has regular vulnerability. I think they only had the regular vulnerabilities, Acid, Fire, Cold, and Lightning. They didn't have the other ones, so this just gives vulnerability as well as Sonic and Sovereign Vorpal. This hand axe is not quite as good as the Dry and the Demigod hand axe in terms of raw damage, but it does have vulnerability stacking, and it does give you extra Sonic damage, and if you're playing as a high Sonic-based Swashbuckler, I've done some actual builds and build reviews for a Sonic stacking damage user, especially with Fatesinger and how much extra Sonic damage you can add. Pretty cool weapon, so we'll have to wait and see where this actually comes out. We already talked about Grixis Gouger, but it's got the lightning here, something you consider using. And then we have Hunter's Dark Blade, much like the Sonic Hand Axe. This Kukri, which is a, or I guess Kukri is the proper pronunciation, is not too often used weapon. However, it has Unholy Burst and it's got the nullification on it. I think this is probably the least likely thing to get used, just because it's melee with the nullification, but it doesn't have a lot of good melee stats on it. I don't see most people using this, but maybe if you need that extra quality and insightful nullification, it is a raid effect, so it does have some of the higher stats in the game. So that's all the weapons. However, oh no, there's more weapons. I'm just going to finish off the weapons here. Pomora's Impaler is a cold rapier. So again, cold vulnerability, something you consider using maybe on a cold Eldritch Knight if you're going to add in cold damage, or even if you just want to support cold casters. Right now, cold sorcerers, cold alchemists, and cold druids are extremely strong, especially when combining that with the Magus of the Eclipse Epic Destiny for the time stop effect. So having cold vulnerability might be very valuable for doing high amounts of damage in a short period of time. Outside of that, this is not better than Flow for raw damage from Ravenloft, so you may consider using Flow instead of this if you're a rapier kind of person. And then we have the Hunter's Axe, which is a force version of all of this. So it actually has the quality and impulse and insightful impulse, just like the Shadow Blade, except this one has damage instead of illusion stuff. So it's a Dwarven War Axe, Sovereign Vorpal, Fetters of Unreality, Force Blast, probably one of the most concentrated effect things. This is the most effects of all the items on this list. But it's a Dwarven War Axe, which means it has to compete with Hoarfrost, which is very, very good. although I think this might actually be better than Hoarfrost, but it also has to compete with a new one from Dryden the Demigod that applies the magma effect, dripping with magma, which is a huge amount of extra damage. Is this better? If you're a artificer, you want that spell power. The Force Blast is kind of cool, but again, it's a wait and see. I will say this is less expensive and much easier to get than the axe from Dryden the Demigod, and you may already have the dripping with magma effect from another source, so again, it's going to be a wait and see as to whether this item is better or worse, but it's going to be very build dependent. Not a bad item by any stretch of the imagination. Next, we have a couple of rings here. First is the Memento of Maury, Sacred Spell Focus, as well as Acid, Light, and Alignment Spell Power. So great for a Warlock who is going to be doing Acid and Light Spell Power. Most Great Old One Warlocks will do that. Light and Acid is not going to come up anywhere else because the Divine Casters don't have any Acid spells, but some Druids do get acid spells that they can cast. Well, not some druids, but druids get acid spells, like the acid damage over time effects, and light and alignment, which affects... nope, I think that's it. Interesting item. It's basically specific to one type of warlock. Very cool. The other ring is Pomora's Memento, which is a little general and very good. It's got Cold and Lightning spell power and crit, extremely valuable item for a lot of different casters, and Insightful Spell Lore 5. This is the first time this effect is being put on anything that is not an orb. The Golden Orb of Death, as well as the Tome of Strahd, both have this effect, the Insightful Spell Lore. But those are hard items to fit because orbs are really good. But a lot of times, you got a free ring. So this is actually very convenient. Expect to see Pomora's Memento showing up in a bunch of builds, especially considering this will drop all the time since the new raid has 2 additional chests. Next, we have the Stable Stone here, which gives Intercession Ward, Alignment Absorption, Force, and Light Absorption as a trinket. Not a very, very good effect. However, good swappy. You're never going to use this or run this mainline. You're not going to keep this on your character all the time. But say you're playing as a tank and you're running a piece of content that has high force damage, high light damage, and you want to make sure you stay alive. A good swap in, pretty much for anybody in the game. Not something, again, you kind of keep on your character. This is a good alt item to kind of hold on to. But again, very useful. That force absorption is a rare effect, not going to be everywhere, although you do already get force absorption from the Bulwark of Snow if you're running that shield on your tank. But most people aren't running Bulwark of Snow, especially people that are squishier or not tanks. So again, a good swap for some force damage. Now, the last 4 items are kind of paired together, which is the Of the Hunter set. It's a brand new set that's just been added to the game. And these items are all very, very good, and they form a set together. So I'm going to look at the Helm first. This set grants the Hunt Master's favor. So 2 pieces is sneak attack dice. Very uncommon effect on sets. Very good. Then 3 pieces is double strike, and 4 pieces is damage versus the helpless. Since these effects are powerful like this, you might ask yourself, okay, but you have to equip all these items, and what's actually missing here? Well, the cool thing is that since this is a melee set, you're only really missing melee and range power, and then once you have that, you're going to be equipped, and also armor penetration. So you might not need the armor penetration. This competes with part of the family because some of the effects are very good. First, Relentless Fury, Eversight, Quality Deception, Quality Seeker. Great item. Quality Deception and Seeker are very rare effects, and Relentless Fury is 5% extra damage when you get a kill. Very, very useful effect. Then, Cloak of the Hunter, Druidic Survival Mastery, Druidic Stone Shape. Both things that make it so when you wild shape on your animal form, you gain damage and physical resistance rating based on your wilderness lore feats. Which means if you're either a multi-class Barbarian Druid or a multi-class Ranger Druid, your character is going to have full wilderness lore feats and get a lot of bonus from this, especially since these effects stack as their primal bonuses. Then Quality Combat Mastery is basically nowhere, and Exceptional Healing Amp, basically nowhere. Again, just a completely unique item. Both things that are stats that you'll always want on both characters that you generally don't get. Then we have the Hide of the Hunter, the chest piece that goes with this, which grants Fortification, Dodge, Spell Resistance, and Elusive Target. I've never seen a legendary feat this powerful show up on an item. I mean, technically we've seen Wind Through the Trees show up, but that's like an epic feat. This is, I guess, Elusive Target's also an epic feat. I would argue that Elusive Target's a little bit better. This makes it so you, whenever somebody hits you, they have a 5% chance to deal 0 damage, which is very, very, very good. And you might not always take it because on a melee, you're going to be taking more damage-focused effects. So this armor actually is quite good. Now, of course, because it's an armor for the 4-piece set, if you want that damage versus helpless, you are giving up on the part of the family. However, still quite good. And even that 2-piece set is very nice for the cloak and the helmet, which you'll notice don't interrupt with part of the family at all and are very good on a druid. And then finally, Shield of the Hunter is the last item. This is a buckler. Ignore what the image looks like. That grants impact, so it's got the extra critical threat range. I don't know why. I don't imagine you use this on a Vanguard, but you might. Guard breaking, so whenever you critically strike, you stun a monster. Double strike, armor piercing. Just so many stats on one item. Is this good? Do you want to use a shield in your druid animal form? Maybe you want the 2-piece, use like this shield and something else on a vanguard for the sneak attack dice set bonus. Honestly, I have no idea, but it looks interesting and it looks good. It's hard to make an exact comparison, but the whole set looks pretty solid overall and something you may want to invest in. Anyways, that has been all of the items here. So get raiding, because it's going to be a good one. I don't know how powerful these things are going to be. Ho, 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 ho. Animal Form Chains build. I did release Animal Form Chains build that literally could slot this entire set and would be very happy. Very happy with this whole set. It would be very powerful. So it's true. It's true.